Hello and welcome back to Time to Change. Today, I'm excited to have Michelle Strasburger. She's one of our new partners. She is the CEO of the Wellness Value. If you do not know her, get connected today. And we are going to be talking about broken systems and performance management today. So my first question is, for people that don't know, what is performance management?
So I will give probably an older definition because I think that's the part that's broken, is a process or system to manage employees' performance. I was speaking with somebody the other day and he said, well, I think performance management is I tell somebody to do something and how to do it and they do it. And that's what's broken. Is that I think that's what people think of with performance management. And that no longer works, right? And the employee voice has a huge part in our organizations today, much, much more. And if you're just going by a model of telling people what to do and how to do it, you're not going to get buy-in, you're not going to get innovation, and you're not going to get performance, and people are going to leave.
Yeah, absolutely. Who wants to work in an environment where it's just like this all the time? And then that's how you're graded. You're graded on how well you follow that, so.
Right.
So let's dive into, what beyond that, what's broken and how do we begin to fix it?
Sure, absolutely. So the performance management processes that we have had for the last, 50 years, let's say, have been a very archaic process of a point in time. And the manager sits down with the employee and says, here's your feedback for the whole year. So you wait the whole year to get feedback. Or we do it with new hires after 90 days, which is still a long time. The problem with that is that the employee doesn't know what to expect. And so within their brain, the fight or flight mechanisms are kicking in before they even get to your office. And so what happens is there's already a wall up. You can say whatever you want and it's not getting through. And we're missing an opportunity throughout the year to give that continuous feedback. So if you think about too, the different generations in the workplace, the current generation that's going in, my kids, your kids, into the workplace have had a schedule every minute of their lives. They have somebody telling them what they're doing right and wrong. They go to play dates. They go to after school programs. They go to sports. They always have somebody helping them and coaching them and giving them feedback. And then they get into the workplace and they're used to getting this feedback all the time and it doesn't happen. And so they're convinced they're not doing a good job. They must not be doing a good job. And so then they start to leave organizations. They are craving that constant feedback. And so we need to have systems and programs in place. And when I talk about systems, it's much more the process than like an HRIS system or tech software. But we need to have systems in place and mechanisms that help us deliver that feedback in real time. And managers that are trained on giving that feedback real time.
And I think it starts really with the onboarding process. From the time that you have identified and hired someone, how do you bring them in? How do you set them up for success? How do you partner them with someone who potentially can be a mentor or a guide for them? And then how do you follow up and give them consistent feedback one, you're listening to, hey, what are your challenges? What have you experienced this first 30 days or this first week or whatever it is? And 30 days may even be too long of a period of time for someone who's coming into a new organization. Maybe it's every week that you're following up, or, maybe every couple of days until you see their strength and can play off of, hey, you know what, I'm good. I'll follow up with you. You can play off of listening to them and how they seem to want to work. But I think that's a great point, that we've got to do more listening. We've got to do more interacting. And as leaders, we have a responsibility, not only if we want to retain more people, but if we want to help people thrive where they are, we've got to do better. So let's pinpoint a couple of those let's pinpoint a couple of things that we can do. So I mentioned listening, but what are some other things that you think that we're missing the mark on and that we can really put into place?
Absolutely. I also think it starts at the recruitment process. Onboarding is key as well, but in recruitment, how do you like to work? What's the best framework for
Good
you? How do
point.
you like to receive feedback? And here are the expectations of the role and what we're looking for, and being very clear. So many times people get into a role and they're like, this is not what I thought it was going to be, because we look at recruitment as a selling opportunity, right? We have to sell
Yeah.
them on the company, especially now where it's harder to recruit. But I'm going to put it out there. I think we have to be much more open of like, these are the goals of the position. This is what success looks like. And here's how I'm going to give you feedback along the way and coach you what works for you, right? And making that a dialogue. So I think that's important. I think we also have to be much more agile. So I did a mastermind on this, and I used the example of COVID, right? So when the days of old, we used to set goals at the beginning of the year. We had our strategy planned out. We would set our goals in January. So let's go to 2020, right? We set our corporate goals. Everybody had their goals in place for the whole year. A month later, that all imploded.
It's gone.
And that was no longer relevant. And that was probably an anomaly, but that when you look at our businesses of today, they change, right? They change. They're much more dynamic than an annual goal. The world is changing and having an impact. Our workforce is dynamic and different. It's not, people in suits coming and sitting down and doing the same thing and making widgets all the time. There's many different roles. There's service positions. There's technology positions, right? And we need to drive innovation, and you're not going to do that by having stagnant goals. So we need to be much more agile and create a process where our goals will be fluid and change with the organization and change as things change.
I love that. And I agree with you that actually is a missed piece that I didn't even say. That you're right. We've got to be clear in the hiring process so that we're not setting people up for failure by putting people in roles where that's not where they want to thrive. It's not what they want to do, and that's not where they want to thrive. We're doing them and our company a disservice. And it's a disservice to other employees that are thriving already, because now they're like, oh, well, this person doesn't really want to be here, and it's very apparent. So yeah, no, great point that we've got to start from the hiring process, and then it's got to continue from onboarding it and listening to how employees want to do things. So now I'm a leader. I'm putting into place things in the hiring process, the onboarding process, and I'm still struggling with. I give reviews to people. And let's say that, hey, I'm still having one-on-ones. I'm having monthly one-on-ones with everybody. I'm communicating. I feel like I'm doing a really good job, but I will sit and give an annual review to someone, and I'm getting this really horrible feedback. How would you tell a leader to go backwards to see where something's broken, to be able to fix that and not get to an annual review, which is very common in a lot of companies, that they only do that as annual reviews, and they're usually tied to positions or monetary means, and that means a lot to people. So they get very personal about, well, you're taking money away from me and my family. How can we go backwards to see where it's broken and where we've misstepped or where we could do better?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that feedback needs to be regular, and it needs to be in the moment. And so if your employee is, let's say, giving a presentation, or they're talking to a potential client and you're on the phone just listening to the sales pitch, right after that call, there should be a conversation of, what do you think went well? And what do you think we could do better? And what were blockers? And I don't think the leader has to have all the answers. I think those can be questions you pose to the employee. Like, what do you think went well? Let's make it a coaching conversation.
Yeah.
I think the other thing too is that reviews can be very backward looking and not forward looking. And I think some people have talked about feed forward, but I think it goes deeper than that. And I think we have to start thinking about upskilling and reskilling as part of our performance management process. If you think about the systems we have in place today and the jobs that we have today, with AI, a lot of those jobs are going to be obsolete in maybe 4 years or less. And so what are you doing to help those people that their jobs are going to change because of AI or because of the environment or because of whatever's happening in the world? What are you doing to give them the skills today that's going to help them in the future? Instead of looking
Yeah.
backwards on performance reviews, because you should have already addressed the feedback in the moment.
Yeah.
Let's use the performance reviews to look forward. What are the goals? How are we going to get you there? And then should we focus on upskilling or reskilling? One of the examples I use is an executive assistant, right? There's so many AI tools right now for managing your calendar and your trips and things like that. That role may be obsolete. And I hope anybody listening to this as an executive assistant doesn't get scared. But that's an opportunity for an organization to say, we have a great employee. They've been with the company. They have tribal knowledge. They know how to work across the organization and influence people. How do we upskill them or reskill them so that they could be successful in a sales role or in a customer service role or whatever other position we have, a leadership role in the organization, instead of thinking, oh, well, that job's going to be obsolete, we'll just eliminate the position, because you're losing a lot of the knowledge and the experience that could really help improve your organization.
Such a good point, because I think that happens way, way too often, is that you see companies eliminate positions, and sometimes positions in droves, for financial reasons and for reasons like you just said, where tech is taking over a segment or their processes have just changed. But then you'll see that same company coming back and rehiring other people. Like, why put people through that trauma? Why lose great employees? But especially because of the cost, the painful cost of retention, and what it means when you're not retaining people, and you have to come back, even if it's 6 months later. What could you be doing differently so that you can upskill and reskill someone? They feel good, they stay in the company, and you're protecting them, their family, you're protecting your reputation, and you're building trust and engagement with your people. I mean, seems like that is a lot more intuitive and helps the P&L bottom line, if that's really what you're focused on the most, than going the opposite way. So I love that you called that out. We're going to be running close on time, so I want to give a final couple of minutes for you to say, hey, you know what? This is what performance management's going to be looking like in the future, and I think this is where we're trending, and give a shout out to kind of what you do and how you can help.
Sure. One thing I want to say too is that your performance management process, whatever it is, has to be tied to your culture and your values. And so if you talk about being agile and giving feedback regularly, you need to make sure that your system is set up for that. And that's the work we do. We look at organizations, we help them transform their culture through cultural initiatives and people strategies, and transforming programs like performance management so that it all aligns with the culture and they can shift to a much more people-focused organization or culture. I think that sometimes we get mired into like, what's the tech system and can it work, right? Or how do we make it work?
Right.
I would say build your process first, and then find a system that will work with your process, and not the other way around.
Very good point. Very, very good point. Well, today on Time to Change, we've had Michelle Strasburger, the CEO of the Wellness Value, here with us today. Thank you for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.